and welcome back to my true crime channel. Today I'm going to be doing a body language and statement analysis of the Cecil hotel manager. Now, I'm sure most of you true crime fans out there are fully aware of the tragic case of Elisa Lam. She died at the Cecil Hotel some years back, and her body was tragically found in the water tank at the hotel. Now, in February this year, a brand new Netflix documentary came out where the hotel manager Amy was interviewed about Elisa Lam's death, and ever since then, most people that watched the documentary found the behaviour and the body language of the hotel manager Amy to be somewhat strange. Now, I'm not going to go back into all of the details of the Elisa Lam case because I've got other videos that cover more information about that, but today I'm going to focus on how strange I find Amy to be. Now, earlier this year, after the Netflix documentary was released, Amy gave a media interview for a media television company in America, and I've watched the interview numerous times, and yet again, I find Amy very strange. I find her quite unempathetic about Elisa's death and all of the 80 deaths that occurred during the years that she worked at the Cecil Hotel in LA. I just find her really weird, and because of that I want to do another video on her, and I'm basing it on the media interview that she has recently given.
Amy, thank you for being with us. I just finished watching the docu-series, and of course I have so many questions for you. But first, what made you want to speak out? Was there anything you wanted to get across about your experience? Because I would imagine it's not easy for you to bring all this back up in your head.
The only reason I really did, this interview with Netflix is because it had integrity. It was explained to me that they were gonna really do the research.
Now, straight off the back, I just want to mention something about the woman that interviews her. I don't find her a very good interviewer. Sorry, no offense to the woman, but that's just how I feel. And straight off the back, one of the first things that she says to Amy is that the public found her relatable. Relatable? Really? I didn't find her relatable. I find her really, really rather strange. Some people think she might have had Botox, and that's why she doesn't have any expression in the top part of her face when she talks. And if that's true, that could be why so many people have found her strange. Because if that is true, that she's had Botox, when she's trying to show emotion in her face, it wouldn't show on the forehead because her forehead is very still because of the Botox. So that could be a good reason why we all find her so strange. Personally, I don't just think it's the Botox. I generally find Amy, the Cecil Hotel manager, to be quite a strange character. Now, during this meeting or interview that the Cecil Hotel manager gives to the American media TV company, she just generally is very weird. She's asked about the 80 deaths that occur. She doesn't show any sympathy for the people. She says a lot of them were old, wasn't really murders. Most of them were natural deaths and suicides, and, these things happen.
One thing I wondered from you was, I think at some point you say something like 80 deaths happened while you were there.
When I first started working there, there were, a lot of long-term tenants. I mean, let's just say, maybe over 80, and there were a lot of older people. And, these deaths weren't murders. These were, people that just passed away naturally. I mean, of course we had, some, circumstances where people lost their lives, due to suicide and overdoses, but for the most part, I mean, these were older people that, that passed away. Yeah.
Yeah, I am aware that deaths do occur in hotels. They happen in all sorts of places. Suicides tragically happen in hotels. We all know that. But 80 deaths in the years that she worked there, that seems really abnormal to me. A lot of people think the Cecil Hotel could be haunted or cursed. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised if it's cursed due to the level of weird and sad and tragic things that have occurred there. Now, another thing that is asked of Amy is, did she have any paranormal experiences at the hotel? She claims not to have, but she does also claim to believe in ghosts. Personally, I'm not sure if she was telling the truth when she said that, and it was just to kind of go along with the theme of the question, but she does say that she believes in ghosts, but she claims to have never seen any at the Cecil Hotel.
The docuseries does get into things like that the Night Stalker had spent some time there. The hotel does have such history to it. Did you ever have any paranormal experiences, any senses there?
Yeah, everybody keeps asking me that, and it's a great question. I mean, I do believe in ghosts. I do, and I'm not opposed that they don't, that they exist. But it wasn't my experience at the hotel. I mean, I was running the hotel. We were running a business. You know, the thought of like the ghosts and goblins running around. I mean, that's what I kind of picture with a lot of these, a lot of these other things that have been out where it's like you think that they're flying around everywhere, and it just wasn't my experience.
I mean, something that she says in relation to the ghost question is that she was running the hotel, they were running a business, and when she says that, I was the manager, we were running the hotel, you can tell that she thrived on the power of being the manager of the Cecil Hotel. Amy is also asked why she stayed working at the Cecil Hotel for as long as she did. I believe she worked there approximately for 10 years. And when asked that, her face lights up. You can see that she loved working there. She said that there were employees that stayed a long time, that one employee worked there for 35 years, that they had a great team, that she's still very much in contact with a lot of her ex colleagues from the hotel. And generally, you can tell when she answers that question that she generally loved working at the Cecil Hotel.
So, given though that there were deaths happening at the hotel, that it wasn't a seedy area, what made you stay working there so long?
I loved my job. I did. I worked with amazing people. I mean, still, I talk to a lot of these people still today. I mean, there was so many employees that have been there 10 to over 30 years. I mean, 35 years. We had a great team, and I learned so much while I was working there. It was my first hotel job. I mean, it was quite an introduction, but I enjoyed it. And in fact, the only reason I left is because the hotel closed.
And shockingly, Amy also says at the end of the question about why she stayed at the hotel is that the only reason she left the Cecil Hotel, being the manager, was because the hotel closed. So clearly she enjoyed working there. The 80 deaths that she may have witnessed or been made aware of during the years that she worked there, the tragic and awful death of Elisa Lam clearly didn't affect her like they would most normal people, in my opinion. And she loved the job, so much so that she wouldn't have left had the hotel not have closed. Now, again, Amy is asked further questions about the death of Elisa. In the Netflix documentary, she claims that Elisa came into the lobby one day, screaming, waving her hands in the air, claiming that she was crazy and that everybody in LA was crazy. That was something no one had ever been made aware of until the documentary comes out, and Amy is asked why that information wasn't given to the police previously. Now, Amy claims in the interview to have never spoken before about her experiences of working as the manager of the Cecil Hotel to anyone in the public, in the press, before the Netflix documentary aired in February this year. Personally, I get a red flag immediately. Why did she need to use the word never? It wasn't necessary. She just needed to say, I haven't spoken to anyone before about my experiences at the hotel, or I've not spoken before about it until the Netflix documentary. Something along them lines. The word never certainly raises a red flag for me. Personally, she'd spoken about it loads of times. I don't think, maybe not to the media, but she'd spoken to friends and family and a lot of people about the death of Elisa and her experiences of working at the hotel well before this interview and well before the Netflix documentary.
Well, it seems like in this documentary, we really are, like you said, doing the research, uncovering some things. You at one point say, I've never said this before, but Elisa, she did kind of say some wild things and she seemed like something was a little off. Had you shared that with the police? Why had you not said it publicly before?
Everything that I shared on, the show, of course, was shared with the police. I mean, there wasn't anything that I, held back or anything like that. I just had never spoken.
Something I've noticed about Amy's body language throughout is her blink rate. She blinks quite a lot, much more than a normal human, which leads me to believe she is quite stressed out and anxious during the interview, which clearly she's chosen to give them. Which leads you to believe, why did she choose to give the interview if she's going to be so nervous throughout it? But the constant eye blinking leads me to believe that she's quite uneasy when answering the questions. Now, it is quite hard to read Amy's body language throughout this interview because she is sat down and you can only really see this part of her body up. You can only really see her face. You can't see her hands moving. So it's hard to tell really her emotions from her body language because you can't get a really good baseline because you can't see all of her body. Something I notice is though she's very rigid She doesn't move very much throughout the interview, which leads me to believe, again, she's quite anxious and stressed, and that she's trying to keep in anything that she doesn't want getting out information-wise. During another answer that Amy gives, she says, "You have to remember that I was the general manager." And again, you know, power driven, very much thrived in being the manager of the Cecil Hotel, wants to make the point known, you know, you have to remember, I was the Cecil Hotel manager. I was the hotel manager. You have to remember. Weird, that one, you know, trying to convince the interviewer of her authority as the hotel manager, and that obviously everything she's ever said about her experience as the hotel manager of the Cecil Hotel in LA is true. There's no lies, because you have to remember that she was the hotel manager. Very weird statement.
It's fascinating to watch. You also have to remember, like you said, you know, these are real people, these are real emotions, and you guys all went through so much. What was that time just like for you personally, mentally, emotionally?
It was really hard, you know. I mean, you know, in the beginning with, you know, it was a loss. I mean, somebody passed away, you know, in a tragic way. You know, the circumstances of, you know, just, you know, discovering how she died and processing all that was, you know, hard. It was hard on our entire team, you know, and also, again, you have to remember, I mean, I was the general manager, so, you know, I was responsible for making sure that our employees were getting through the process and all that. I mean, there wasn't anything easy about it.
Now, again, when Amy is asked about Elisa's disappearance, she claims that at first she wasn't too worried about it, but she did think maybe something dodgy or sinister had happened, and that maybe Elisa had come to some harm. That's what she insinuates, but she's kind of blasé about it and a bit carefree in kind of saying, I didn't think too much of it to start with. Another thing that Amy says about the death of Elisa is that because she was the general manager, she had to make sure all the staff were okay and worry about their welfare after the aftermath of Elisa's body being found. You know, she again playing the card of I was the manager and I had to make sure all the staff were okay. Really weird. She seems to be more bothered about her stardom as the hotel manager, as she sees it in her mind, than the death of Elisa, which is really, really bloody weird. And again, with the question that I've just mentioned about Elisa's death, where she's saying about in her answer that she was the hotel manager and she had to help all the staff, she says, and it's really disturbing, there was nothing easy about it. And then she smiles and almost laughs and sort of shakes her head. If there was nothing easy about it, you wouldn't smile and almost laugh and move your head like that. You'd look sad and somber, and she doesn't. And I find that really quite disturbing. Something else I've noticed when asked about Elisa's death is when she mentions the word I, she stumbles over the word I, and she also goes, you know, and she sort of repeats herself. With the I thing, I is one of the most common words that a human being uses. You use it every day, you use it without thinking. You should never really need to stumble over I. So look out for this with people that you have conversations with, especially when you're watching interviews on the telly. Sorry, I'm just pointing at my telly, not that you can see it. When you listen to interviews, especially if you can see the person to judge the body language, but whether or not you can see the person, if you see someone, especially politicians and people in government, people high up within the world, and they struggle over I, they stammer over the word I, because you should never stammer or stutter over the word I. It should be something that comes naturally, and when she stammers over the word I, it brings out a real big red flag to me that she is hiding something.
So that moment when you learned of her disappearance, what goes through your mind?
You know, I didn't, from the beginning when I learned that Elisa Lam went missing, I didn't have a good feeling about it, but I didn't think that she was going to end up at the hotel. I really thought, you know, since she was traveling alone, maybe there was a possibility that she, you know, maybe met some people, you know, in, you know, that part of town, and, you know, maybe that happened. You know, I just would have never thought, you know, of course, the outcome. I mean, how could you possibly predict something like that?
Now, something that's really, really interesting, one of the most fascinating pieces of body language that I witnessed from Amy is when she's asked about the elevator video. Before the interviewer can even finish the question, contempt flashes across the mouth area of Amy's face. You can see she is fuming that that question has been brought up. She is not happy to answer questions on the elevator footage of Elisa. And what that question is surrounding the fact that there are so many theories out there that the footage was tampered with, and could someone at the hotel have tampered with the footage?
What about the elevator video? That is a question I still have. People wonder, are there pieces missing from it? Is it edited? Where's this missing minute? What do you say to all that?
It's absolutely unedited. I mean, I handed everything over firsthand. I'm the only one that would have had access to the footage.
So Amy's answer to the question about the elevator footage is quite interesting. She says, and I quote, "It's absolutely unedited." Now, again, a bit like stumbling over I, absolutely is not really needed. In fact, it's not needed at all. You just needed to say the footage is unedited. I'm not aware of anyone in the hotel editing the footage. The footage was not tampered with. It's absolutely unedited. The reason for absolutely, when people are lying, they often use it to emphasize what they're trying to get across, the point they're trying to get across. It's absolutely unedited. Makes it seem more plausible. But what people don't realize is that people that have done research and that are trained in statement analysis and body language realize that that's a big red flag. Red like my top. Red, red, red. Flag, flag, flag. Flags are flying red all around when Amy is speaking.
It's absolutely unedited. I mean, I handed everything over firsthand. I'm the only one that would have had access to the footage. So, I mean, I did see that in the documentary where they talk about that, and absolutely not. I mean, we were very transparent with the police, and the footage, I don't think anybody could deny is, it's strange, of course. I mean, she's acting very, strange on the video.
Shockingly, Amy claims that she is the only one that would have had access to the footage. So, if that footage has been tampered with, which I believe it has, there appears to be about a minute missing, and it looks like points of the footage have been sped up. Personally, I think Amy might have tampered with the footage. I sense that she is lying when she's asked about that. You can tell that she's trying to add little words in, like I said, by saying it's absolutely unedited, trying to convince the interviewer she had nothing to do with the footage being edited, but does admit, which is really interesting, that she was the only one that had access to it. She follows up by saying that she saw in the documentary that they talked about the footage being tampered with, and absolutely not. Again, the word absolutely comes out. Absolutely not in relation to the footage wasn't tampered with. Absolutely. Absolutely not. It's absolutely unedited. Why she feels the need to use the word absolutely twice, in my opinion, my humble opinion, is because she is trying to convince that interviewer that footage wasn't tampered with when it was, and she actually knows that it was.
The footage, I don't think anybody could deny is, it's strange, of course. I mean, she's acting very, strange on the video. But as far as like any tampering or, a missing minute, I don't think so.
Is there a minute missing from it?
I mean, I saw that in the documentary where, people are thinking like, has this been tampered with, or, absolutely not. No.
Now, she says as well that they were very transparent with the police, as in they told everything to the police. And she does admit, which obviously is true, and we all know, that the footage was very strange and very disturbing to watch. And she then follows up with, as far as any missing minutes or tampering, she doesn't think so. Not only that, she stutters again over the word I more than one time. Watch it and look and listen. Look at her face. You can tell she's lying. She shouldn't be stuttering over the word I. We use it all the time. There's no need to stutter. And often when people do stutter over the word I, it's because they're lying. And often it's to buy a bit of time, bit of thinking time, so that they can plan out the next lie, the next bit of storytelling, the next bit of bullshit that's about to flow out of their mouth. Now again, she continues the denials about the tampering. Really, really weird. Her eyes widen a lot when she talks about it. And when she says about, how it couldn't have been tampered, she looks off to the left, which is sort of memory regaining, in my opinion. When she looks off to the left and she says about it not being tampered, in my opinion, she's looking off, well, sorry, I'm not doing it right. She's looking off to the left like that, remembering tampering with that video, remembering it was actually her, in my opinion, that tampered with that footage. And to finish off her denial in that sentence, we have yet another absolutely not. Absolutely not. Number 3, third time that she's felt the need to use absolutely to convince the interviewer that it's true. Not only that, she then finishes, absolutely not, again with a smile and a quite weird look on her face, a bit like the weird look on his face that Burke Ramsey has during the Dr. Phil interview about the murder of his sister John Bonet. It's a weird, deluded look in the eyes. Now, why, when you're denying that a video wasn't tampered with, the CCTV footage of Elisa Lam in the lift, why would you have a weird smile come across your face afterwards? Why? Why would your eyes widen? Because you know that you're lying and that footage was tampered with. That's why. Towards the end of the interview, Amy is asked what her thoughts were when she initially found out that Elisa had died. And I want to just make sure I get this right. It wasn't, oh, I was so upset, the poor girl, or Elisa's poor family, I can't believe it that they're going to find out that she's dead. Nothing like that. No look of empathy or sympathy or any emotion. She just says quite calmly and coldly, equally as shocking. I'll never forget meeting with the health department in my office, and telling them what had happened. It's something along them lines. So equally as shocking to what? What, the other deaths at the hotel? What, the natural deaths and the suicides? Well, not so sure Elisa's was a natural death. Weird. You know, I'm not sure why she needed to say never, but I'll never forget meeting with the health department in my office. Most normal people, when asked if they'd been in her shoes, how you felt when you knew that a young woman was dead and found dead in a water tank and had been there for 3 weeks, and people in the hotel that you worked in, including you, were drinking the water that her body was decomposing in and bathing in the water, the residents were, that her body was decomposing in, and you're not upset for Elisa's family, you're just, thinking back and thinking, oh yeah, it was really tough having to have the health department in my office and tell them what had happened, and they were just as shocked as I were. I'm not sure why you need to mention that meeting with the health department in your office. Really not sure why. And I'm really not sure why you have no emotion or sympathy for Elisa. I appreciate you didn't know her. I appreciate people that died at the hotel weren't people you knew. But even still, you'd still think that the woman would have some sympathy and empathy for Elisa and for Elisa's family. But I see none. Zero.
If you can take me back to that moment, and when you find out that her body is in the water tank, it's shocking. What was it like for you when you learned about that?
I mean, equally as shocking. Meeting with the health department. I had the health department in my office, and I explained, what had happened, and they were equally as shocked too. They'd never dealt with anything like that before. I mean, it was hard to process. There was, and I was drinking the same water. I mean, we were all drinking the same water.
Now, something that's really, really interesting, one of the most fascinating pieces of body language that I witnessed from Amy is when she's asked about the elevator video. Before the interviewer can even finish the question, contempt flashes across the mouth area of Amy's face. You can see she is fuming that question has been brought up. She is not happy to answer questions on the elevator footage of Elisa. And what that question is surrounding the fact that there are so many theories out there that the footage was tampered with, and could someone at the hotel have tampered with the footage? So there's one final statement from Amy that I want to analyse, and it's said at the end of the interview in relation to the aftermath of Elisa Lam's death and discovery of her body in the water tank. She says, "We had to close the hotel altogether and relocate everybody that was there. There was a lot involved." So again, we had to relocate everybody that was there. It was such a big job. Oh, poor me, the hotel manager. Not poor Elisa, not poor Elisa Lam's family and friends, the poor tragic girl dead in the water tank. None of that. Just poor me. We had to relocate everybody in the hotel. It was so hard and there was so much involved. No empathy, no sympathy. So this is the second interview that I've watched of the woman. The first was obviously in the Netflix documentary of Amy, where I see no empathy, no sympathy, no nothing, which does lead me to believe whether she's got some sort of disorder. Could she be a psychopath? Could she be a sociopath? Does she not have normal human emotions? Is that how she was able to work at a hotel for 10 years that had 80, yeah, that's 80 deaths, and not find that a disturbing place to work? Now, I appreciate some people are stronger than others. Some people can deal with death, others can't. That's normal. Everybody's different as a human, but Amy I find disturbing. I feel she has no empathy for Elisa or the other tragic deaths that occurred at the Cecil Hotel, and I just generally find her such a disturbing character.
Can what did the health department tell you to do? What did you have to do after that?
Oh, we did everything they asked us to do. I mean, they did, a series of testing, and the water wasn't contaminated. Come to find out, and I guess that isn't uncommon based on the circumstances. There were a lot of steps. We had to close the hotel altogether, and relocate everybody that was there. I mean, there was a lot involved.
Well, anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'd love to know your thoughts and views as always. Do you find Amy disturbing? Have you watched this interview that I've based today's video on? Did you watch the Netflix documentary? If you did you find her very strange to start with? Did you find her unempathetic and emotionless? Did you feel she's hiding something? And more importantly, do you feel that she did edit the CCTV of Elisa Lam in the lift? Because personally, I think she did. Well, I hope you've all enjoyed today's video. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you know anyone else that likes true crime, please point them in the direction of my channel. I'd really appreciate the support. Thank you to all of my subscribers so far. I'm really enjoying reading all of your comments. Please continue to comment because I really want to discuss the cases that I cover with you, as I love knowing your thoughts and your views. Anyway, guys, that's it from me for today. I will be back very soon with another true crime video. Take care of yourselves and stay safe. Bye-bye for now.